In this section of Chapter 3, we focus on another benefit to using business cases. They help develop critical thinking. The term critical thinking is used so often that we tend to take for granted what we mean by it, so we'll take a moment to explain what we mean here. In general, critical thinking covers a broad spectrum of skills that business, education, and government appear to agree are crucial for students to master in order to compete and succeed in the global marketplace. Critical thinking is much more than merely learning information. It involves acquiring skills that are continually and actively applied with intellectual commitment and rigor. Critical thinking encompasses skills linked to logical thinking and reasoning, like comparing and contrasting, classifying and sequencing, analyzing, synthesizing, problem solving, planning, hypothesizing, and evaluating. In the video clips you are about to see, faculty and students identify the critical thinking skills that business cases help them foster. As you watch, note down one critical thinking skill that you would like to help your students develop more in your courses.
The greatest benefit for teaching cases, in my opinion, is seeing them develop their problem-solving skills. Because obviously with every case, there's a problem to be solved. And for our students to they're so used to having everything given to them. In a sense that it's like we open up their heads in American education and we pour in their knowledge, and they expel the knowledge on paper from a variety of orifices. Sorry for saying that. But we train students basically to be very passive in the United States, where case study research and the use of case studies in the classroom is very active. And so students love the change of just being given information to them using information and doing within the European mode of synthesizing that information and then analyzing it to come up with a particular solution, of which there may be no one correct solution, that there may be many solutions. They love that whole process.
Again, it obliges students to go beyond a deductive approach with the principles and then a simple application. It obliges them to make the connection between a reality that is always complex and their capacity then to reconnect that reality to concepts, tools that have, or even precedents or statutes that they've discovered somewhere else.
And the neat thing about a business case is that it simulates that real-world decision-making environment for that protagonist. The students are not privy to any more information than the protagonist was at that moment in the case. I tell my students, you're not allowed to, if it's a real company, a real situation, you're not allowed to go out and look and research in the newspapers what they did, because ultimately that doesn't matter. Sometimes people make mistakes. They don't always choose. Companies don't always choose the right decisions. But what's more important to me is that the students sit down and look at the information in the case and be able to glean the wheat from the chaff. What is the information that's in the case that's really critical to the decision that needs to be taken, and what's really extra and extraneous or even contradictory, and glean that out. Because that is a skill that is very hard to teach in any other way than through some sort of business case simulation, but it's a critical one for business managers.
So what was important about the cases for me, and even the way I approached it going in, was it wasn't the case itself that was important to me. It was the process of doing the case that was important. So I would focus a lot more time on just trying to develop a systematic argument or figuring out how I could phrase a question to challenge my opposition or whatever.
Because the case I chose present the cross-cultural differences, the way the companies changed their business strategies when they entered the other market. I wanted the students to increase the awareness of cross-cultural differences, which comes up through business, and also not only aware the cultural differences, but I wanted the students to think critically about all those cultural differences. I don't want the students just notice, oh, okay, in Japan people drink canned coffee, and here in the States we don't. not just that, but I wanted the student to think why this particular difference occurs, what kind of behaviors or in terms of drinking soft drink do people do, how do people buy the products and when, and what kind of people buy and what kind of lifestyle the people have, and how does it affect to choice of products that they want to buy. So I wanted the students to think about those one aspect of culture phenomenon through the business case in a different perspective.
It's harder to sit down and read a text and absorb everything than it is to actually experience the scenario and coming up with the ideas yourself. So it's a digestion versus like engagement.
Absolutely, that's great. Whereas here, it was a collaborative experience, with the professor. It was sort of a more back and forth kind of thing, and that's, you learn language by having conversations with people, and that was what this course sort of was a sort of a dialogue between all the students and the professor.
I'm still thinking more in a linear fashion. Our students don't think in a linear fashion. Our students really do think in the fashion of a web. And the way that they go through things, they take your process that you teach them, and they they internalize it in a different way, and it's absolutely fascinating, the things that they come up with. I think when you put the ball in the student's court, and you give them the freedom to make mistakes, you get great things.
It's not just about reading the case and then you're done. We really get into it by really debating each other, asking the professor for certain details about the case, and really having multiple angles, and in the end you can form your own coherent opinion and be able to express it in Japanese.
Critical thinking is very important. It's probably one of the main things that they practice in class and through these tasks that I ask them to do. One is recounting the story. That's one thing, just summarizing. But when I ask them to put themselves in those shoes, in the person's shoes, and make a decision, and at a certain time, certain issue that comes up in the case, they have to debate different sides of the same issue. They have to compare sometimes, how things are done there, how things are done in another place, whether that would apply, whether they could apply it in a different context. So they're always comparing, contrasting, and I think what I really like is that they put themselves in a different perspective.
So how do cases foster the development of critical thinking skills? First, by promoting problem solving. With cases, students don't just learn a list of information. They have to analyze, gleaning the important facts from the irrelevant ones, and applying this knowledge to solve a problem. Cases also provide a forum for testing out skills. In the context of doing a case, students can formulate questions, engage in dialogue, and debate each other, all in the guise of first understanding and then solving the case. And lastly, cases emphasize process over product. Students and faculty alike said that working with cases puts the focus on working through the problem. In the end, this is more important than the ability to memorize an answer or provide a perfect outcome or product. In this section of the e-Handbook, you've heard about critical thinking skills that cases help develop in students. What about you? Which skill would you like to help students develop more in your courses? In the last section of Chapter 3 on the benefits of teaching with business cases, we'll highlight cross-cultural learning.